So nice. Just open the camera if you are back. So when I deliver, I will not feel like I'm talking by myself. Yes, nice, cool. Thank you. Thank you for the people open camera and take in the chat as well. Okay, Nitin, just let me know when everyone's here so we can start. Hi, Randy.
Hi.
Hello. Sri Lanka weather is really cool. I like it. I used to, and I hope that all of you amazing. So I hope you are welcome back to the session. And for this session, we're gonna start talking a little bit into each element deeper because I think that in the last product launch, we just launching, but then we didn't explain and understand and have a space to actually understand deeper into each element. So it's gonna be the space for us to actually understand about it. And I believe that this is the first time for you as a TM to manage a product journey and funnel. So that's why I will try to go as slowly as possible so that you can get used to it and you can understand how you can manage it as a product right now. Okay. So yeah, this is about me. And for sure, because I'm coming from the background of operations, so I'm really strong in operation, talking about operation funnel. Okay, first, the objective of the space that we're gonna have today is I'm gonna explain for you why do we design the journey in this way. Secondly, we're gonna go through the way that we are tracking the member journey and funnel, and then we can understand how we're gonna design the journey differently for different duration of the experience. Yeah, so this is the objective of today. Cool. Now, let's start with a bit of the questions. So I just want to know how many people here coming from the background of like TM, product, BD, marketing, or finance. You can type, if you are used to do 2 roles, you can type. If you're used to do 6 roles in Isaac, you can type 6 roles in Isaac. You can type in the chat. Just never work with BD. Oh, I see, cool. TM, product, nice. Yes, the OGV Vietnam, right? TM and finance, nice. SD, TM before TM. Wow, we actually have more diversified background than other departments, like other region. When I ask this question in America, most of them is like TM for life. But that is cool. It's really good to have a diversified background because then you can flexible. Okay, cool. Now I want to ask you the first question into a little bit into technical things. How do you think about our TM data tracking and reporting system in the past? Is it clear for you? Is it insightful for you? And if it's not clear or insightful, then I want to understand what are your struggles. Okay? You can think and you can share. Not very realistic. Mm. Can you explain like a bit more?
Yeah, when I mean realistic is because, for example, a few of the things we have, they depend a lot in personal perspective. So, for example, even like if you take team processes or team standards, like people interpret it differently. So, depend of who you are asking, they will say something else. So, how you can rely in a data that depends on people perception? So, it's really hard. And then when we consider like other kinds of information, like okay, number of people, blah blah blah, but we don't know what, for example, makes some people leave because we don't have any way to correlate people that left and why they left yet. So this is one of the things as well that we are lacking. We just sometimes have that people left, but we don't have the why. So many things are really lacking in terms of making TM more smart in terms of analysis.
Yeah, makes sense. Louis Wang Hui Le say not really centralized. Each LC has different measurements, so it's when it's come to comparing each other, it's quite hard. Yeah, I think this really makes sense. When I remember that the MCB when they said that when they want to look into and understand what TM is doing, it's really hard for them because they have no idea what is the central thing, the one way of measuring right now, or they don't actually understand if they look into in something only, then what is the standardized thing for them to actually understand what is TM doing, so that they can give the coaching or direction based on that. Yeah, cool. Anyone else, if you want to, you can type in the chat if you have the same struggle. But if you think it's clear, then you can say there's some part that is still clear, because I think there are also something that is clear. Okay, cool. So what we can see right now is the way that we are doing with the TM data tracking and reporting system is not really centralized, because basically when every entity and different contexts, they're gonna have different way of measuring. And when we one example that we can usually see is how we're gonna calculate the retention rate. It's also very different among the entity when I'm asking the same question for different MCVP as well. And this is something that I observed in the network so far. The second question that I want to ask you is about the timelines. So how do you think about the past timeline of team process and team standard time in terms of management, in terms of timeline management? You can say which part is clear for you or which part is not clear, or what is the struggle that you have. Is it unclear for you? Wow. Don't be shy, guys. Just say what you think.
I'll go. I think it's hella messy because like for Australia at least we have like 11 LCs. It's so hard to kind of align all the timelines. And even if you have like a
Mm,
general one, some LCs struggle to adapt it according to what they need. Mm.
mm, yeah. I see that also other people say that it's messy, not clean how the implementation gonna work. And people see it as checklist, not as impact on possible result. Cool. Yeah, I also see this. Shreya say different recruitment timeline in different LC, misaligned process and standard. Yeah, recruitment timeline is really different among the entity. And then there are two things that I also observed. The first thing is when we're talking about recruitment campaign timeline, it's really different in the entity on how long it's gonna take, or how they want to do, or what when they're gonna start in it. And then the scenario is like the recruitment campaign happen at the same time with the attraction campaign of other ELD, and then it turned out that a lot of entity is being lack in attraction campaign, and then the recruitment campaign is also not very well. And also another thing that I see is like the keep process. Actually, for the keep process, it's not clear a timeline for the keep process, because keep is something that happens along the way. When we let's say, but team standard is really a good guideline for becoming a leader. I work in an MNC as an intern, and the way my line manager managed the team was similar to team standard, although he not an answer. Yes, I totally agree. I think that for team standard, it's really makes sense. I believe that this is the most useful guide that I can find in Isaac, because it actually facilitates a lot of things. And I also have a chance to talk with some company, my friend working in the companies like we like right now, and then they say in the company they don't do team standard. So which means that the timeline management is a little bit messy, but it doesn't mean that all the process is not make sense. It's there's still something that still makes sense for us to use. Okay, cool. Now let's talk about the strategy. So I have a question. I want to understand about your strategy. How do you think about your past TM strategy in the entity? Do you think that it's strategic, and is it solving the on-part problem? So I just want to hear which part that you think is clear for you, or is there any part in the TM past strategy that you think that it could be more on point? Or you can also share about how is the strategy implementation in the entity for TM. Oh, anyone want to share? Don't afraid. I will not send this to your recessor. And this doesn't mean that your recessor is not doing good. They are doing really hard and working very hard.
Can I answer for my predecessor?
You can do it.
I think actually what I found that was a bit lacking from my predecessor was actually because she was affected how people reacted when she tried to implement things, and she ended up not focusing too much in trying to solve issues, but just be there to support the VPs in case they needed. So I felt that this kind of approach was like I understood why she did like this, but I didn't agree with the fact that it created a different mindset, and it made the people not really understand what they needed. So it was very passive from my perspective. And I think that affected a lot, expectations, to the point that my first semester, I had to shift most of my plans just so I could be able to have something happening for the second semester at least. But all because of the mindsets of the VPs that I received, it was completely different from what I needed. So it was really hard to
It's
manage
20
that because of
hours.
this kind of mindsets that was created.
Mm. Yeah, I also agree because I see in my own experience as well. There were some time is TM is really have a big pressure of like I need to solve everything, and then when people gonna bring the problem to TM, and then TM being creative to it and giving some short-term solution on it. Yeah, and for sure it's not gonna create a good things. For Australia, the strategy is usually like a reflection of the MCVB. Like the MCVB current is really an odd number, so the way he goes about it is very data driven, which was good because he implemented many different metrics to look at different aspects of TM. Mm. Okay, so which means that for different MCVB, we're gonna have different focus or style of managing the TM. I see. I would say my entity-based strategy are not sustainable. Let's say this term focus on eight, then okay. So which means that in Myanmar is not like very sustainable. Like we are not very clear in what is the long-term direction for the organization and focusing a lot in the short-term one, right? I see. Triple rowing, so it's rough. Oh, yeah, I see a lot of TME doing OD as well. Yeah, I don't know what to say. Just try your best. That's just a big workload. And that's, oh, okay, poor. Okay, people were just talking. That's really a lot of things as well. And then to be honest, I think sometimes TME being because we TME doing OD at the same time in some entity. So sometimes our role is like half TM, half OD, and then when it turned into like we only do TM, we actually don't know what is something that just TM is doing or just OD is doing. And then Louise, let's say for my entity, the best strategy were not really based on data a lot. It came from mainly the observation from the input. However, strategy for effective. It give a learning point to talk as much as possible to your team information in your entity. Yep, I think that's cool. I think that not all of the strategy in the past is wrong. I think there's a lot of strategy that's really makes sense and we can actually learn about it. But also at the same time, the common thing that I see in one of the entity is like um, it depends a lot on the MCVB. If this MCVB is good in data, then that's year that entity gonna do huge thing and huge projects about data management and data tracking. And but then also at the same time, if there is some part that we gonna missing as well, and there's some kind of strategy, I think it's like what I observe in the network is right now the workload of the TM people is really huge, and because we are being reactive to what happening right now, because like people is coming and say, hey, CM, my member is not working, my member doesn't have a good productivity, and because of this thing happen, people is in TM getting burned out with the strategy as well, and we are trying to do many things at the same time, but also at the same time we are super focusing on the get process because we have after we do finish a get process, then we have another get process is coming that we need to planning for, and then we have another get process is coming, and then the whole time we are focusing in get process. And this is the reason why our whole organization is really good in doing get process, but then the rest of the keep and develop is we don't have enough time to focus on it, or sometimes we are trying to do a lot of things, but then we are not clear where it's gonna come, what gonna be the result that it can bring first. Yep. So I just want to hear a little bit and have a discussion space with you. So I just want to understand about it so that you can know that you have the same problem with a lot of people as well. Now, I want to share a little bit of my experience at Product Head when I just become the LCVP OGV. So I work marketing, and then in the middle of the term, people really like to put me in different role in the middle of the term, and then at that term they put me in the OGV. So I only have 2 weeks to define a strategy for my organization, for my function, and I don't have much time to doing it, and I don't have time to go through all the data and tracking and system and work. So with a very little of time and very little of space that I can do as the product head, what I choose to do is I choose to looking at the customer journey of my product. So when I try to looking at it and I just analyze the funnel only, I found a big gap in the customer journey that when I bring that question to ask the whole organization, like the whole entity, like even my MCVB, they also didn't know why. Because at that time, my entity usually, so when in GV, right? When you're doing GV, you're gonna know this. When you do GV, you're gonna introduce a program for opportunity for your member, for your EP. And then you usually have the tendency to introduce like 10 opportunity or 20, and then they apply for 10 and 20. And then after they get accept for the role, accept for the position, then they reject the opportunity. And then at that time, when I start to see why we have very low conversion in this part, and then I'm asking why we are doing this part, the whole entity didn't understand why. And they say this is something that we used to do for many years. And people didn't even asking why. So that is the moment where I start to choose to do a very risky strategy where I'm choose to solving the gap. So what I'm doing at that time is I thinking about how we can actually make the conversion to be higher by asking the EB to just apply for 3 opportunity only. And then based on that, we can have a very clear expectation before they apply. We can and after even they got accept for the role, they will not reject the opportunity, and the IR people will not get sad about it. So this is a very simple strategy, right? But then the key thing that you can see here is I choose to do the strategy of the 20% of the problem, because at that time my function is dropping, and the OGV in my entity, no, in my function in my LC is dropping very much. And then we have a lot of problem, but then I choose to focusing on 20% of the problem that I have at that time, and I build on of a strategy to solve it only percent of that problem, but only because I believe that this is the biggest problem that if you solve it, then I can solve the rest of the 80% of the problem in my entity about what's happening. And at this time, we also have very little of the resource in terms of member and productivity as well, considering the LCBB is very new in the product as well. So that's why we don't have much resource of the people to achieve a higher goal. So which means everything we do need to be very focused. So the thing that I want to share with you from here is the strategy is very simple. It's just about instead of asking people to apply for 10 opportunity, now ask people to apply for 3, right? But then the core thing that I want to show you here is the difference is about, are we asking the right question? Are we actually knowing what is the problem to solve? The way of giving solution is simple, but asking the right question and understand where is the biggest problem we need to focusing is the biggest part of the whole strategy creation, and the biggest part that's shaping how you design the journey for your member. And that is also the reason why right now we have only one single member journey and funnel. Because if you have one only single member and journey funnel, it can allow you to understand and do a lot of things around this funnel. And basically, when other people, when they look into your funnel directly, they know are you doing good or not. So if you have one funnel, the first thing that you can sell and it can help you, even we're gonna have one way of data tracking and analyze about a member inside by analyze the funnel KPI, because every KPI about member is gonna going back to the funnel KPI, and it's gonna help us to understand if this funnel KPI is not happening, then we're gonna look into the supporting KPI under it, and we can find what is the inside behind it. Second, it can help us to asking the right question, because any question, it needs to going back to the member journey problem. And if it's being centralized in one journey, then we can asking the right question and we can know what is the onboard solution that we need to have right now. So yeah, asking the right question is the biggest part that you need to do as VB. And the last part is the timeline. So right now, we will not have TM process timeline. We will not have team standard timeline. We only have one customer journey timeline, which is the member timeline that we are having right now. And based on this timeline and based on the timeline of realization, we're gonna do backward planning or forward planning to the rest of the process of recruitment or the finish or the complete process of the recruitment. And based on this part, all activity of TM gonna being built and designed around this timeline as well. So we will not go in any far from the journey. And this one is something that I already showing you in the last product launching call. We have lead applicant, accept, approve, real life, finish, complete, advanced alumni. This is really similar with any like exchange product. But then what I want you to remember is we are putting everything in the customer journey. Like this part is not asking you to chasing for the number. It's not gonna be about, I'm sorry, it's not gonna be anything about like having another competition to chasing after the number anymore. But behind that, we have more meaning about how we're doing this part. And then what you can see in this journey. So in the past, you used to see a journey when we have the first initiative is recruiting, onboarding, advancing, experiencing something. So the thing is with that journey, there's nothing wrong. Any member, any employee joining any company or organization gonna have kind of similar journey. But then the gap that we have here is not clearly defined in each stage of the journey. And if it's not clearly defined in each stage, then we cannot tracking. And if we cannot tracking, we cannot get insight. So that's why right now when we design the journey, we put everything to be very clear in the stage, very clear in different stage. What is the stage here? What is the customer KPI when they coming to this stage? What is the KPI they're gonna get after they leaving this stage? And what is the clear part that differentiate between this stage and other stage? So that when we see any stage is not going well, then we know what's happened with the journey and in which point. Yeah, so in the future, team operation timeline is built around member journey. The member insight is defined by funnel data tracking as well. And the TM strategy should be something that you build around the member journey as well. So it's built to fix the biggest gap in the member journey, and you can focusing on for 20% of 80% of the problem. The method here, I think that you know. Yeah, having a funnel enough to allow us to have another competition with exchange. Like to be honest, because other people when they look into this one, the AI also the regional office they say, oh, right now team gonna be competitive. Okay, but it's not. It's not like we create the funnel to ask the member to chase for the number. We create a funnel to have this one at the standardized bar for all of us as the whole global network, as the whole regional entity, and also for your local when you're tracking the LCVB as well, so that we can understand the context behind the member experience in any place, in any entity that you are joining or you are coming. And if we can have a standardized bar on it, then it can allow us to have a standardized way to track and collect the insight from the global network. And imagine that if you can have a correct insight from the global network, about what's happening with member, then you can have better strategy from global, from regional, and also from your side as MCBB as well. Yeah, and finally, it's gonna be something to allow you to asking the right question about what actually going on with member experience. And it's gonna be the part for you to facilitate your thought process more than just giving you what is happening. So that is about why we are design the journey in this way. And I hope that we are very clear on why we have the journey design in this way and what is something that's gonna change if you are working on the journey right now. And it's gonna be different with how we manage the TM process and team standard in the past. So right now, everything is centralized in one thing. Now, let's go to the next part where we're gonna talk about the journey and the funnel. So we're gonna see how it's being designed and how we gonna tracking the funnel or how you're gonna managing the funnel differently. So I just want to know like when you doing the transition, what kind of data and insight that you want to understand about your membership context? Can you type in the chat? So what is the question that you ask your successor? Like what kind of data you concern the most? everything?
Can I share?
Oh yes, you can go.
I think it's like I think we have very less knowledge in regards to data analysis. So we know how to get data, but we do not know how to analyze it and bring output from that, or bring change in the experience from that. So I think I really want to understand that once we have data, or once we track data from team standards, or LDA, or like other measures of data tracking, after we get the data, then how do we utilize it, how do we convert it into certain procedures, or certain way that creates a fruitful output out of it. So basically data analysis and implementation. So I think that is something that
Mm.
I really want to understand.
Yeah, cool. People say in GS, NES, NBS, a lot of S. How well RTL and EB deliver experience, not better for not. Oh, that's cool. Yeah. How TL and EP deliver experience to develop leadership is a big question in the organization, to be honest. Pretty much we need more capacity building in that analysis like we are correct. Oh, by the way, that is the reason why in the TMD structure we're gonna have a position to about talent intelligence. It's just cool. It's just a nice position, right? Woo! So we're gonna have a people that's very intelligent to analyze the data. Cool. Performance management. Cool. I see that you have a lot of like concern and understand like there's a thousand of KPI in TM, right? And when I'm just joining my term as well, I also get overwhelmed of my data because it's really a lot. And to be honest, I can be very good in like aesthetic thing, but in data is like not my strength. But I can do it. Experience management beyond performance. Cool. So that is the data that we're gonna having here right now. Oh, cool. Carol memory in GS team, right? Yeah. Okay. So I think I just want to mention for you and make you understand a little bit about what we are talking with data right now. In the last session, we're talking about direct impact and indirect impact, right? So you know what is the direct impact and who you're gonna create a direct impact on, and what's gonna be the indirect impact that we're gonna indirectly create. Like for example, if we develop the leader in this organization, then these people gonna increase the revenue in operation, or it can increase the experience of the customer in other product, for example. And there is an umbrella of the MOS that we need to look into. Now we're gonna put everything into MOS of an umbrella of what's gonna happen first, what's gonna happen next, and what's gonna happen next, so that you will not like get everything overwhelmed everywhere, every place. The first thing that we need to focusing in the funnel KPI. So the funnel KPI is something that very important for MCVB or any product head when you are tracking the performance. So the funnel KPI is the lead, the accept, approve that I just mentioning about here. And also second thing is under the funnel KPI, there's gonna be a lot of supporting KPI to make it happen. So for example, if you are talking about realization, under realization, you need to tracking about engagement, development, and performance. And then under this part, in engagement, you need to understand about how member is engaged with the activity that you have, or even you can have like how many members joining the event, for example. It's also an supporting KPI. So to make one funnel KPI happen, we're gonna have thousands of supporting KPI to contribute to it. But then it's gonna be your decision on how do you want to define the supporting KPI. And from supporting KPI, we can analyze what's happening with the funnel of the member. And from the funnel, we're gonna focusing on the direct impact. So direct impact is the key KPI that we need to focusing on, like as TM. If the complete is about quality of the leadership development, then ideal HR is gonna be about the quantity. And then in terms of like the LPS, is gonna be about how much you actually develop leadership and how much they perceive this opportunity is leadership experience for them. So you can do whatever you want as long as you make these three KPI happen complete. You have enough number of people to perform, and you have a percentage of LPS. And if one of these KPI is not happening, then you're gonna going back to the funnel KPI. And in the funnel KPI, you're gonna going back to the supporting KPI to understand what are the supporting or things, or what are the insight behind it. Yeah, and then finally, after if you already create this part, then you also need to look into the indirect KPI as monthly routine or quarterly routine. So for example, if you have a lot of complete, for example, and member is really happy, but then at the end of the day, they don't supporting or increase or create any changing for other function. Then in the monthly routine or quarterly routine, we also need to review in our strategy again. So this is how all the KPI that you are working in, it connect to each other. So that we can be very clear what are the key KPI and what is the supporting one, and what is something that we need to make it happen no matter what, or what is something that it's just the KPI to allow us to do the analyze better. Okay. Yeah, and this is the three KPI that I'm just talking about: the direct impact, complete IDHR, and our response rate of leadership promotion score. Now, just very quick going through the complete, how we're gonna measure a complete. So in terms of complete, it needs to be having a finish status on X bar. So in the future, when you put the start date of the member and based on the duration of the member, it's gonna count if this people is finished the experience or not. And if this people is like in the middle, they terminate from the experience, then you click terminate. So that if any people that have finished status, then we can start to have they need to be a finished first before a complete. These people need to fill in the LDA survey, of course, because LDA gonna be over there. And then in the future, we're gonna have the refreshment of leadership development, leadership value and competency in the future as well. And also the mandatory of member experience standard, the mandatory part in member experience standard is being delivered. So member gonna also click, okay, did I set deliver this for you or not? No, yes, no, yes, no. Yep, this is just the funnel. And when you are managing the funnel, when you look into the funnel, there gonna be three way that you need to manage a funnel at the same time. So first, we need to manage the funnel by timeline of realization. So the timeline of realization is gonna be the base for you to decide the whole timeline of everything of the whole funnel timeline. Second, you're gonna manage the funnel by different duration of the member experience. So that you can get more insight and get more input about how members develop themselves in different experience or different duration. And also you need to look into the funnel stage by stage so that you can understand what are the what is happening in different stage in each stage. So now let's go into each of it, and then we're gonna have time to discuss with each other as well. Managed by funnel. The first thing I want you to do is let's go to this link. It's in the MC planning. I think that you already see it. It's all in the MC planning. Yeah. You can go to this link. I can give you 1 minute and go to here and just go through it. Okay. Oh, nice. Thank Carol. Yeah, this is the link. And you can go to the TM tab. Okay, I think that you all have good internet and you're already in the link right now. Now you can look into me, and then later you can look into the working sheet later, okay? So this gonna be how we put a member journey and every journey of member into a funnel. And in this funnel, what you can see is you can see the timeline and you can see the status. What I want you to do right now is you can have 1 minute to look into the to first get used to how the funnel look like, and second, let's look into the peak time of different status. Okay, so let's focusing on the peak time. So you can have 2 minutes or 3 minutes into it, and then you can get used to it. Now focus on try to understand the timeline, try to understand the status, the funnel KPI, and the peak time.
When you know it's not okay, and you know you're not to blame, look inside your mind and try to find this heart of mine. And you know it's just a dream, one you wished you'd never seen. Open up your eyes, it's still dark outside, alone again tonight. You got the smile I wanna see, you got the heart to carry me. You got the smile I wanna see, you got the heart to carry me. And you try, but it's too much, and hurting yourself is not enough. Think of everyone who has it worse than you. There is no curse on you. Think of everyone who has it worse than you. There is no curse on you. You got the smile I wanna see, you got the heart to carry me. You got the smile I wanna see, you got the heart to carry me.
Okay, so I guess that you already have enough time to get used to this part, right? Maybe you already see it, and if anyone used to work in product, it's really similar to what you used to know. But then when you manage the funnel by timeline, what the question that you always need to asking in your head is, what is the peak time of something, something? So for example, if you look into a funnel like this part, the first question that you need to understand is the peak time of realization, because it's the very important timeline. And for example, if you look into here, you can see that August and February is the peak time of realization. So which means that the rest of the process of like approval, accept applicant, everything here, it need to be happen before the February happen. So that by February, you're gonna have enough time. You're gonna have like 100% of the member is ready to perform and ready to enter the experience. And then based on that, you can do the backward planning. Okay, then how long is the approval setup could gonna take place, and then how long the accepted gonna take place. So that based on here, you can understand about what should be the best timeline for you to do promotion and recruitment campaigns. So that the timeline that you are working is not gonna be like a sensing timeline, but it's gonna be based on the timeline of realization. And also, if you look into here, you can see based on the duration, right? For example, duration is 6 months for medium experience. Then after 6 months, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, this one in January is gonna be the peak time of finish. So when the peak time of finish is coming, which means the peak time of complete is also coming. So which means that in November and December, you already need to plan a plan to see how you can make the complete happen. How you can ensure that on the team leader have a team closing, the team debriefing, for example. So which means that everything that you are doing is gonna be on the peak of something coming, and which means that you can be proactive to understand what's gonna coming next, what to the experience, and then what you need to repair. And the timeline of the TM right now, that when you are managing and when you are put it in a timeline, it will not like team timeline, team process timeline, or team standard timeline. But then right now you're gonna have one timeline, like this one for the member. So it's gonna be like step by step. Okay. And depend on different duration, is the real life timeline gonna be shorter or longer. So this is how you're gonna focusing and manage the funnel based on the timeline. So I want to asking you, and you can have time to do reflect right now, and you don't need to share now, but you can do reflection. How do you think this way gonna affect to your operation timeline management? Like how you're gonna manage the timeline differently, and also how it's gonna be affect to your tracking system and routine. Each month we will have a lead, so we need to conduct more recruitment. Um, no, it not. I'm just putting a number here as example for you. You're gonna have the peak of lead is coming in, for example, July or January. But then for short term duration, it's gonna be flexible timeline. So that's why sometimes you can sometimes you see a little bit of lead is coming in September. So this may be coming from the short term experience, for example. So you don't need to like always like do recruitment all the time, but then you know that okay, we need to have some kind of like taking, they're gonna be some people is coming, and then we need to taking care for them.
I mean,
Yeah,
for
how is
example, in my entity, we are going to have a recruitment in September, which means
mm,
September, yeah, which means that in July and August we don't have any lead because we conduct the recruitment on September, and then we end it in like
ah
November, for example, and we are track them in 1 month, for example. So yeah, that's what I mean. So for example, the recruitment last
I
3 months. So we September, October, and November we have lead, but for July, August, and other months we have zero leads. Yeah, that's what
mm,
my concern is. Because for the
yeah.
OTV products, we will have people sign up for our program and we will give consultancy to them so that they become the lead. But now the recruitment we cannot recruit monthly. Yeah, that's what I mean.
Yeah, I understand. Yeah, so that makes sense because it's based on your entity context. There's someone that no lead coming from, and the recruitment here is gonna be also including recruitment for all of the experience. For example, team leader, team member, or you also need to team member, and also like for short-term experience as well. So maybe sometime the recruitment for newbie is gonna coming from in October, for example. But then in July, we also need to have ensure that the recruitment for team leader role and team member role is also happen, for example. But then it depends on your entity context. Some there are some months it's gonna be like zero. Yeah, I just put it here as example.
Ah, so the membership program will include like EB, team leader, and team member also, right? All of the layer.
Yeah, yeah,
Oh,
on about
okay,
layer.
okay.
Yeah, cool.
Oh, okay. For example, in October,
Mm,
the advance,
yeah.
which means that 17 people agree to apply for higher role. So, which means if in November we don't have any recruitment for membership and for EB, but just for team leader program, so we will have
Mm.
17 applicants, right? For example.
Then if they are here, but then they don't want to apply for other role, then it can be like they're still on the expert and they are still a member, but then they are not ready apply for the new role yet. But then what I usually see like sometimes people is not sometimes people apply for the new role when you are still in the old role. So yeah, so at this stage which means they are still the advanced, but if in next month they apply, then they're gonna become the lead. But if they not apply yet, then they are still member on the platform right for that moment, but they are not really the lead. Yeah, and the difference between the lead and the advanced is for the advanced is the people that say I want to reapply and become be, still become a member of ISAC. But then for these people, it doesn't mean that these advanced people gonna become your lead, because maybe one member they finish experience and then they say, oh, I want to apply for the same role, but then in other entity, then they become lead of other entity. Awesome. When is the ideal downscaling implement for this? Because August start recruitment in 2 3 weeks. Okay. I will not talking about the timeline for recruitment, but because we're gonna have time for change management. But then what I want to mention is you gonna decide on what kind of like duration of people that you want to start this new journey. So for example, if you think that right now for the team leader and team member is very urgent for you to changing, then you can choose to do this new funnel with the upcoming newbie generation. But then if any entity that they think that they can do it with the current team right now right away, then you can do it. So it's gonna be really depend a lot on your entity context. Okay. So that is the two questions that I want to ask you. First is how it's gonna affect to your operation timeline and tracking system. Now let's go to the next part where we're gonna manage the funnel by sorry, let me go back to the duration. And this one is the duration that I introduced to you in the last one. We have the long one, the medium one, and the short one. So in this part, the thing is like in this part, the biggest difference that we can foresee and we can see in how we manage the experience, it is gonna be depend on first whether they're gonna have the realization are longer or shorter. So which means that if they have 3 month experience, then realization timeline gonna be like just 3 months. But if they are longer, then it's just different in the timeline of realization. And second is because it's different in the duration of the realization timeline, so it's going to affect to the rest of the funnel timeline, for example. So for short term, the recruitment or any kind of like accept approach can be done in very quick, like 1 or 2 weeks. But then for EPT, it could take for a few weeks or months, for example. And you can also look into this part in the funnel that I share with, in the tab that I share with you. So when we are planning for the funnel, we're gonna plan based on different duration, and we're gonna understand what are the different duration that we're gonna have right now. And based on that, we're gonna have different conversation and different conversion for different type of the duration. And from different conversion for different duration, we're gonna break it down into 3 funnel and timeline for different duration. So we're gonna manage everything in different duration. For example, in short term, the timeline for the lead coming is very flexible. It could be coming in any time if you have the projects. But then, for example, if you are blending with your EP, usually you're gonna know that in, for example, in the next 3 months, you're gonna have an LC conference. Then you already know that you need to have someone to apply in the next 3 months for the LC conference for the short term, for example. And also for the medium term, it's usually coming from in the peak of, as you can see here. So in the picture that I showing you, you can see that it's gonna coming from in July, August. The realization gonna start in August, and or the realization gonna start in February, based on, and which is exactly the timeline of the member timeline. But then also in other months, like for example in August, you still have some people is coming and then applying, which means that this could be the timeline of people that working in the, a role as like supporting role, or EST or or GST, for example. So every experience that taking for 6 months, then we also count it as medium experience. So why we are talking about different duration right now, and why we need to track everything in different duration, because it can give us a lot of insight. What does it mean if the majority of the team leader that you have right now, they have the background of going through many short-term experience? So which means that before they become the team leader, they used to be in a lot of short-term experience, and which means that your people have a tendency to apply for a lot of short-term experience, so that they can diversify their learning, so that they can become a good team leader. So which means that our focus at TM, we need to look into how we can facilitate for short-term experience better, and how we can make the experience of people in short-term experience better. And when we do attraction for the team leader role, we're gonna focusing on the people that used to work in the short-term experience projects, for example. Another scenario or another question that you can may see from the duration is, what does it mean if your entity have many people doing double role right now? So they are doing medium experience, and medium experience is the essential experience, and also at the same time they're doing add-on experience. So which means right now people have the tendency to doing double role and then want to learning a lot. So this is okay, but also at the TM we need to ensure that even they are double role, they also need to ensure that productivity, or they need to ensure that the engagement, the commitment with the team, with the essential experience is still happening. So it doesn't mean that if they are doing double role, then they need to they're gonna focusing on the essential role, and they just focusing on short-term experience, for example. So at TM we need to understand this, so that we can educate people that okay, you are double role and you need to but you still need to focusing on what it matters more than for you. Or I can say another scenario or another thing that you maybe can see from different duration is, what does it mean if we have many applications for the long-term experience from other entity? So if you have this scenario happen in different duration, something that you can foresee is, for example, first, you are having lacking of highlight for long-term experience in your entity, which means in your entity, a lot of people just finished the 6-month experience and they don't step up for the long-term experience. So we need to look into our strategy to develop the people and to develop the people for higher role. And also, when you're doing recruitment for the long-term experience, then you can actually try to see if you can get the people from other entity or not, for example. So it actually can give you more scenario and more way of analyzing. But when you understand that what is the tendency of people when they choose to develop, because people can have different way of how they want to develop, and based on that, they can choose what type of experience they want to go. So our role is to understand what is the tendency of people in developing right now, and based on this part, we're gonna facilitate the experience better, and we also gonna ensure to maintain that the plan implementation rate or the strategy or the strategy of TM or the pilot is still make sense, is still maintained. Okay, wait. So I also want you to do a very quick reflection on if we are managing in this way, how it's going to affect to your operation timeline management and how it's going to affect to your tracking system and routine.
I
Yep.
have a question. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can.
Okay. So for example, I plan that the number of applicants, for example, in October is or in November is 451. For example, or can you show back the slide about the funnel planning and goal setting so that I can edit? Yeah. Back one more. Yeah. No. Yeah. Okay.
Mm,
One more. See. One more. Sorry.
I think
Like.
that
Wait. What happened? The
yeah, this
slide that
one.
show the number of leads. Yeah. Here. For example, in November, I have about 451 applicants, and I plan in that situation is, for example, only I plan to have a team leader program and membership reallocation, for example. So which means that I plan to have like 300 applicants for team leader and 100 applicants for team for reallocation in other function, for example, like that. But in reality, I have more than 400 applicants for reallocation, but only 50 applicants for team leader positions. I still meet the goals of applicants I said before, but it's not really
Mm,
maintain the sustainability of applying for higher role. Do you get what I
mm.
mean?
Yeah, I understand. So
Yeah.
which means that if you achieve the number of funnel, but then when you get into accept, you didn't get enough people that accept for the role because of the
Oh,
quality of
yeah,
applicant.
yeah.
So then, which means that in this way, when we are having a very low conversion rate in this part, then we need to look into the strategy of how we are developing the member and building a pipeline in the organization for the role. Or we can also look into are we doing the attraction for the right people to the targeting people or not. So it could coming from two scenario. And at this moment of time, if you have this scenario happen, then in the upcoming time when you have the next round, next circle of recruitment coming, then one of the focus that you need to have is how we can build a byline and talent better from right now, so that in the upcoming time, the applicant that we're having is more qualified. So we can have more qualified applicants.
I mean
Mm.
that because this number didn't separate into like how many team leader position or how many team member position in that 451 applicants, for example.
Mm. Yeah,
Yeah, this is not
yeah.
separate specifically. So when it's come to I receive all of the applicants and I achieve the number 451, but amongst that I only have 50 for team leader position, but I I plan to have 100, but then I
Mm.
still achieve the goals of applicant as a whole. So do you think that
Mm.
we should have any kind of specific number about
Yeah.
how many members and how many team leaders for that month, for example?
Mm. Yeah, your concern is correct. That is also something that I will recommend you to do is like instead of putting everything in one funnel only, the best way that we can track it, we can classify in different funnel so that we can understand. And I believe that for different role and different position, we're gonna need different funnel so that we can have a better understanding about how it look like. Yeah, and depend on you how detailed you can track and how detailed you can track it into different funnel, then we can break it smaller and tracking and have better insight from it.
Okay, how about
Yeah.
the lead? How can you identify that whether a member that apply for another position is a lead or not, or how can we understand that whether the youth wants
Mm.
to apply for Isaac is a lead or not? Because for example,
Uh,
in product we have a sign up form for consultancy, right? But in this case, we don't have sign up form. We just have a like an application form, which means they will come through the applicant when I click apply for Isaac, for example.
Yeah. Yeah, I understand your concern, and I think what you are asking it makes sense, and that is also the part that I want to explain for other people as well. So when you are working in the funnel status, and you have different state in the funnel, right? And you need to track into what is the key KPI that you have. So if we need to track into the lead number, and this gonna be the funnel KPI, but then under the lead number, we need to have a lot of like supporting KPI. So for example, in the lead, what we can track is like, first, we can, based on the survey of the team leader and the team member, we can have a survey to understand how many people is interest to apply for this position. Or we can have, or we can base on the number of the advance from the last term when people complete the experience, so that we can have the sensing number on this part. So the number of lead in this funnel is not gonna be correct number. It cannot be a very correct number, but at least we're gonna know that when we want to have this amount of people apply for the position, how many people that we need to do a promotion to, or how many we need to do targeting to, so that we can know that, okay, I need to have this amount of people to at least interest in the role, and then we can have enough applicant. And then for example, because in some case you're gonna, when we don't have this number, and we only have one people interest to apply for the position role, then which means that we don't have diversified background, and which means that the quality of the applicant gonna be decreased, because we only have one people to apply for one role, one specific position. And yeah, because of that, it's gonna also affect to the quality as well. And also it's gonna connect with other part in the funnel that you gonna track. So for example, if you got the accept, and in the accept funnel, you're gonna have a list of supporting KPI, how many people is dropping out from apply to accept. So if you have a lot of people is dropping out from apply to accept, it could give you a lot of insight about whether you are doing a good selection and allocation process or not, or whether the applicant that you are having here is qualified applicant for the role or not, or it could be not qualified people. And also, like for example, in the realization, you can have a lot of supporting KPI to allow you to understand the context. So for example, in every month, if you look into the break realization, then you can see that a lot of people it drop out from the funnel, which means that your retention rate gonna be in decreasing, and which means that you need to have a strategy to working on the retention rate when you see the people it drop out from the funnel. And just a very quick, if you, so right now, if we are tracking on the retention rate, it's gonna be count by the percentage of realization to finish. So, and this is gonna be count by different duration. So by on different duration, we're gonna understand how it's gonna be, what gonna be the retention rate of different type of people and position. Yep, and also based on the number of realization, we can also set expected goal for percentage of response rate for leadership score. So for example, you have 100 realization. So you want to achieve 70% of the response rate for leadership score, then which means you need to achieve 70 response rate. So which means that you can understand that with this amount of realization, how many response rate minimum that you need to achieve, so that you can make this number happen. And then based on that part, you can know where are you heading to, and how many people we at least we need to taking care for the like we need to taking care for the experience. So this is just a minimum standard, so that you knowing you're gonna know where we need to focusing on, or you know the benchmark of where we are going to. Okay, so I think that we are a little like 2 minutes late out from the from the timeline, but because we are starting late, so I would ask you to have like 5 more minutes. And in this 5 more minutes, let's remember about the three ways of managing the funnel and the journey right now. Managing by different timeline, managing by different duration, managing by different state of the funnel. So my question that I want you to come into the breakout room and do a sharing with each other is, how do you think everything here would change the way that you manage the team timeline? How it's gonna change the way you manage the tracking and reporting, and how it's gonna change the way you manage the local funnel of the with your team commission. So this is gonna be the question that I want you to have a space to discuss. And Niti, can you open the breakout room, and people you can go to breakout room and just feel free to share the opinion with each other.
Hey,
Okay.
I just have
Yep.
a question. Can I ask?
Yeah.
So basically, we used to have our attraction phase, and I think that would be the phase where we attract leads for our membership, right? So when we see in that sheet, there is leads being tracked in every single month. So how do we collect leads? Do we have a particular attraction phase, or how does the whole process? I understood from the applicant part to accept it and everything, but the first phase of attraction and getting leads into applicants, so how does this process work? Like, how do we attract and how do we track lead, and then how do we convert the lead into applicants?
How we track the lead, right? Okay, so what I want, so what the intention behind is when you have this number of tracking. So when you the intention behind is you calculate the number of lead so that you can. Okay, so when we have the number of realization, then you can do a sensing of how many number of applicants we need to have. And then based on this part, you can do a sensing of how many number of leads that we need to have. So it's not about like, okay, in this part, in this month, you need to try to get this amount of lead, but then you're gonna know that, okay, if you want to have this number of applicants to apply for the role for this position in this month, then how many people that you need to approach, how many people that you need to targeting to approach and to attracting them, so that when you work with the marketing team, they are very clear about how many sign up, or which is how many lead they need to bring for you. And also when you are working for a team leader role, then you also need to know, you can do a sensing with your team, with other MCBB, to understand that how many people that have the intention to apply, so that you can have understanding that are we having enough highlight or not. If we don't have enough highlight, then the number of leads gonna be decreased. Okay, so this is just, so don't focus on tracking the number and make the number happen, but focus on the reason behind is we have this number to allow you to understand you have enough lead or not, for example.
Okay, so Nee, like you mentioned for lead, we have recruitment in every 6 months. We do not recruit every single month, and even for the MBs, we do not like open manager post every month. It's just in six months, right? So how do we track every month, or like is it compulsory for us to fill every month, or like how does it work? I'm still confused about the lead aspect for membership. Like, how do we attract team members, or like how, like we have attraction phase in 6 months, and then we make sure, like during talent planning, we make sure that we come up with numbers of people that we want to recruit. Then we have
Mm.
attraction phase, and then we move towards selection, right? So now when lead is being separated for every single month, like how do we evaluate it for every single month, and how do we come to a conclusion, or like do we recruit every month, or like how does this work?
Mm. Okay, so in the funnel that I showing you is the combined funnel of all of the duration and experience. So that's why I suggest you to have a separate funnel in your own tracking for different position and different duration. And also in the tracking tool that I have here is it divide into different duration. So this one is the funnel for the segment. So based on the segment, you're gonna count it by the segment duration. But then for the funnel of 3 months, it's gonna be like flexible timeline, for example. Then you're gonna have different way of putting the timeline for lead, and also for the long-term experience for EB role, then you're also gonna have like duration different and the timeline for lead differently. So right now it's not about that you are tracking number of lead, but when you are working on this sheet, you're gonna starting with number of realization, and then you calculate how many number of lead that you need to have to fulfill in this role to have enough people, for example. Then from here, you're gonna do a plan with the marketing team to do promotion better, to see, okay, if we need to have this amount of applicant and qualify, then we need to have this amount of lead. And when you implement it, and if the number is lesser than what you are expected, then you can just put it as the real number of, like, for example, you plan to have 100 lead, but then you only achieve 50. Then you can just put it 50 in your tracker, and you know that, okay, in the next recruitment, you look into this 50 number of people, and you know that you are having a problem with the attracting the right people, or getting the right people. Then you're gonna know then you have the strategy for the next term recruitment, next big recruitment. So it's not about like you need to fulfill the number, you understand? It just, this one, it's just like the planning thought process to make you understand how many number you need to striving for, and based on the reality that you are striving for, you can understand, are you doing good in this part or not? And if it's not a good if the recruitment is not good, if the campaign is not good, or if the selection process is not good, then in the next peak of recruitment for this role, we need to remember that what are the problems we need to focusing on to solve. Yeah, is it clear for you now?
Yeah, yes, Nee. So, like, my recruitment starts from the end of July itself. So, by end of July, will we be passed with all the resources for this process to be put forwarded, or for this term we should be like going with the previous term process itself? So, how do we do that
Mm,
for the
okay, I think we,
upcoming recruitment?
yeah, I think this question we can put it in the space for change management, because we're gonna have a space to discuss about it and then talking about it. And don't worry, because after this part, I also gonna have consultancy and regional consultancy and global call, and we're gonna have a lot of space to discuss into the deeper element of it. Cool.
Yes,
Yeah.
actually,
Okay. Okay. Thank you for your question, guys. I think that we don't have enough time, so it's fine. I want you to actually, I want you to have space to talk with each other. But if we cannot have it now, then I'm gonna leave the question for you to go back home, and asking yourself how this gonna changing the way you manage your time, like the way you manage your way of tracking and reporting, and how it's gonna changing the way that you manage your local commission as well. And also at the end of the day, final message. Yes, we are putting the funnel again in to asking you to chasing for the number or to ensure that the number is being fulfilled or not fulfilled. We are putting a number here so that we can know a standardized bar of what is the expected thing that we can striving for, what is the minimum goal that we can striving for, and then it also can allow us to understand the context behind, so that in the upcoming time when we having another round of like managing the people, we can actually analyze the data better, and we can collect the insight about our membership, and which means that we can asking the right question and giving the right solution in the upcoming time for the membership. Yep, so that is also the end of my session, and thank you for coming. If you have question, you can put it in the RFS sheet. Okay, thank you.